All right, we're looking at day 121. This is the reteach on reading, writing, and comparing decimals. Big thing here is that we want students to realize that anytime that a number is written in expanded form or word form, what they need to do first is write it in standard form before they can compare. They'll also compare decimals by using stacking them in a place value chart. Before students move to the independent practice, after the reteach, make sure that you stamp those understandings, right? What you need to stamp is that we always write the numbers from expanded form and word form into standard form, and then we always stack them in a place value chart in order to compare. We need students to say that before we go on. Okay, so we just have one example, but this one example hits on all of the different pieces of this whole standard. The student task for this reteach is actually to write down the strategies that they see you using as you are modeling this, right? So you're going to model this exemplar, and what you should be doing, you should tell students first, your student task, and in the right pair share you see it here, right? What students are copying down, or what students are writing down, is what strategies can I use to compare decimal numbers. That's what they're writing. They're also copying down your exemplar. But this question, what strategies can I use, forces them to be active participants in this reteaching rather than passive learners, right? So what I think you should do first, before you even dive into this model, is tell students what their task is, right? Their task is to write down the strategies as well as copy this while you are copying it down. What you're going to do is you're going to either snap or hold up your hand every time that you are using a strategy that you want them to take note of, right? So you're going to tell them that first, and then you have to show them that, right? As we're going through this work, I will tell you when you should hold up your hand. Okay, so I'm reading example 1. Which of the following numbers are greater than 54 hundredths? Select all that apply. I would hold up my hand right now. I need to find out which of the following are greater, so I'm going to make a huge place value chart that organizes all of my answer choices, A through G, and also this number from the problem. So let's go ahead and create our place value chart right now, right? So what we want kids to do there in that moment is understand that to compare decimals, we need to use a place value chart. Okay, I'm writing 54 hundredths, so the 4 goes in the hundredths place. My first answer is answer A. I'm going to write answer A. I have 8 tenths. That means that 8 goes in the tenths place. 8 tenths, gosh, compared to 54 hundredths, 8 looks smaller than 54. But I know that I'm comparing hundredths here and tenths here, so I'm going to annex a 0. Hold up your hand, right? What you want students to recognize right now is that you're annexing a 0 so that we're comparing hundredths and hundredths, right? Because this is one of the biggest misconceptions. Kids are going to see the word 8 and think that this is 8 compared to 54, and 8 is smaller than 54, but we're talking about 80 hundredths and 54 hundredths, right? So we have to annex a decimal, or annex a 0. I can see that 80 hundredths is greater than 54 hundredths, so that is greater. I'm going to circle answer A. B, this is written in expanded form. In expanded form, it's also written with fractions, right? So now I want to write this in standard form. I see that I have 5 in my tenths place because this is 1/10, so I'm going to write 5 in my tenths place. And then I see that I have 8 in my thousandths place. So here I'm going to write 8 in my thousandths place. So I have 508 thousandths compared to 54 hundredths. I'm going to annex a 0 here, so again I can compare thousandths to thousandths. This is a strategy we want students to do. We want them to annex a 0 so that we can compare the same place value. I can see that 540 thousandths is greater than 508 thousandths. So this is smaller, so I'm going to cross off answer choice B. 288 thousandths. This is written in word form. I am also realizing that this should just be 8. If you could cross off that Y, that would be helpful. 288 thousandths, that means that 8 goes in the thousands place, and we just backfill the rest of the numbers. This is smaller than this. 288 thousandths is smaller than 540 thousandths. 80 thousandths. That means that the 0 from the number 80 goes into my thousandths place. 80 thousandths is the same as 8 hundredths. 8 hundredths is less than 54 hundredths, so that's not greater. Let's look at this next one. 77, oh, it looks like 77, but it's actually 7 hundredths. Oh, I did this wrong. 7 hundredths and 7 thousandths On your paper, go ahead and correct it. This should actually be the 7. So answer B is not correct, right? So we should, or answer E is not correct. We can cross that off. This is a 0. This is a 7, right? Like that's a super common mistake that kids would make. So cross off answer E. This is again written in expanded form. This is hundredths and thousandths. 32 tenths. Here I get into some of the more tricky ways that we write it in word form. 32 tenths, the 2 goes into the tenth spot. So I have 32 tenths, which is actually the same as 3 wholes and 2 tenths, which is greater because this is a whole number and this is a fraction of a number, a part of a number. And finally, 3 and 1/100th. Well, this decimal point this word and tells me that this is a decimal point. Hi, sorry, I just took a phone call, so I don't remember exactly where I left off, but I think I was finishing up with this, like the decimal point. The and means the decimal point, and so we can write it here, 3 and 1/100th. And so what we want students to write when we go over what their like think pair share is or write pair share is, some strategies that we have are to always write it in standard form first, right? We want to stack the decimal numbers so that we compare like tenths and tenths and hundredths. We need to annex zeros so that we're comparing the same place value. This word and means that it's the decimal point, right? And so like we always want students, what showing work for this problem or these types of problems looks like is using a place value chart. So that's even true in something that looks like this, right? Like write the following number in standard form. What we want students to do is use a place value chart. Say this is 3 tens, 4 ones, 9 tenths, 2 hundredths, and 7 thousandths, right? If you write it in the place value chart first, you are guaranteed to never make a mistake. 4 and 302 thousandths, that 2 needs to be in the thousandths place, right? So we write this into a place value chart always, 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 and then we never make a mistake.